unique competitive advantage in business, and they have an asset that they can leverage to reach their business goals faster. But that is only if they've taken the proper steps to legally protect that signature framework or method. Otherwise, they're just opening themselves up to increased risk and potentially leaving money on the table. So let's talk about it. My name is Liku Amadi, founder and attorney of Anasa Law Firm, where I work with consultants, coaches, and expert service providers to help them establish a solid legal foundation for business. And a lot of that includes contracts. Contracts are the foundation of your business relationships. They're the foundation of your client relationships. So we need to make sure that as service providers, we have those contracts aligned in a way that protect us, serve our client relationships, so we have good client experiences, and of course, make money without the risk that comes with it. So, signature frameworks and signature methods are the topic of today's discussion, and particularly how we use our client contracts to protect those frameworks and methods. Um, if everyone will define this differently, just like almost everything else in online business. But when you think about a signature framework or a method, it is a structure, if you will. You figured out some really unique way to deliver your services and get results for your client. You've packaged it a certain way. There's certain steps and mechanisms. Maybe it comes with worksheets and other materials, but you do have a unique position in your marketplace where everybody does one thing, but you do it a very specific way, and it's proven to get your clients results. So, for example, there's a ton of business strategists out there or service providers who claim that they can help you increase your revenue by a certain amount. There are people who can show you results as to how they can do that. And there are those people who have developed a really unique method as to how they go about doing that, whether it's through licensing or generating more leads or hiring, diversifying, whatever their framework or their method entails. They've had it tested time and time again with their various clients. They've improved on it. And now it is that unique way that that one service provider and that one business delivers the services and gets results for their clients. And that's valuable in the marketplace because in a sea of other business strategists and service providers, people will be looking for that person who uses for example, the STAR method, if you will, because they heard the STAR method is tried and true, that it almost guarantees people results, that the service provider is really an expert in what they do with the STAR method, right? People are going to come to you and they're going to want the STAR method. So to stand out among your competitors is definitely one of the advantages that come with having a signature framework or method to deliver your services to clients. And naturally, when people seek you out for that, they're going to want you to use that, right? And that's what you do to make your money. That's what you do to keep your position as an expert. And when you're executing these services, more times than not, services vary from person to person, right? Frameworks, methods vary, but more times than not, you're going to be revealing each part of your framework or methodology or signature structure to the people who you're working with, because they're going to be going through that process. You're going to be explaining things to them. You're going to be walking them through the transformation to get whatever results it is that they invested in your services for. You're going to be revealing it. They're going to have an inside look versus when you're just on social media or talking to someone about your method. You're not breaking it down as much. Even in speaking engagements, we might break down maybe one part of our signature framework or a really important principle about it, but our clients are really the ones who get like the full experience and benefit and insight as to how our signature frameworks and methods work. And there is a very valid concern, because this has happened to people before, as to, what if my client steals my stuff? Or what if they copy this portion of my framework, right? And I hear about it, or I see them using it online in their marketing, or it just somehow comes to that service provider's attention that they have been copied or stolen. Sometimes people claim, what do you do, right? I've seen different reactions. I've seen some people be really pissed off about it and want to take legal action, rightfully so. I've seen other people, not really want to take legal action and kind of just take the approach of, they can't do it like I can, so it doesn't really matter. It's not going to hold any value. And while I agree that you can copy somebody, but you can't deliver or execute something that is so original to them like they can do, totally agree with that. At the same time, there's still a frustration behind creating something so unique, so valuable, so identifying to your services, right? To your brand, really, to the value you have in the marketplace. To just let somebody go ahead and copy or use or be inspired, as some people say, by what you've created. It's not right. It is not right. So what can we do as service providers to help prevent this? And even if we can't prevent it, because you can't really control what people do, what parameters can we at least put in place to make sure that we have some type of recourse or control when something is copied or stolen or inspired, right? Client contracts. Your client contracts. It always goes back to your client contracts. Anything in your client relationships goes back to your client contracts. Why? Because they are the foundation of your client relationships. You, as a service provider, are providing your client a contract which outlines the terms and conditions under which you are going to work together. So not only does it clearly outline the scope of services and what you're going to do together, but it also has other terms, such as your intellectual property, such as how to solve problems when they come up, such as payment related issues and installments, etc. But in this particular facet of the client relationship, when we're talking about frameworks and methods, we are talking about intellectual property. Intellectual property is an asset to your business. It is a valuable asset to your business that you can leverage. Your frameworks and methodology, once you put it in a form that is tangible, those things become assets to your business. They become intellectual property that you want to protect because it has value. It brings money into your business. It positions your brand a certain way, right? That's something that you want to protect. And number one, you want to make sure your client contract has an intellectual property section, because if we're talking about using the contract to communicate to our clients, what they're supposed to do, what we're supposed to do, terms and conditions, this is a part where you let them know what goes down when it comes to intellectual property, right? This is particularly where you want two things to happen in the intellectual property section. Number one, you want to identify any intellectual property that is being used. Specifically, we're talking about you, the service provider, and your intellectual property. So if you have a name for your methodology or your framework, or the name of a program, or whatever IP is being used, name it in the contract so that it can, one, be identified, and then number two, tell the client how it's supposed to be used, right? That's so important, because this is a part here where we communicate that you can't duplicate it, you can't remix it, you can't chop and screw it, you can't share it with other people outside of your business or your team, you can't make commercial use of it, you can't screen record it, right? It doesn't belong to you. You only have personal use, or to use it in your capacity as a client in this program, right? This is where you tell them, hey, this is my intellectual property. We're going to use it while doing these services and getting you your result. However, this remains my intellectual property. You are not allowed to do A, B, and C with it. You are only allowed to use it in this manner for this amount of time. And then, of course, you want to lay out the consequences, which is generally if you do violate these terms and use the intellectual property in a way that you're not supposed to, it's likely going to come to litigation, right? Intellectual property infringement. And while I'm all for, good faith negotiations and trying to work things out, this is very reasonable. People don't play about their money, and your intellectual property as an asset, again, it is valuable to your business. It has you have the opportunity to generate various streams of revenue depending on what your intellectual property is, how you use it, and what your business goals are. So if somebody messes with that, if someone else is making money off of that or gaining recognition or some other value, someone is otherwise frustrating your bag or potential bag that you can make from your intellectual property, I'm at least sending a demand letter, right? Like that's not something that is going to go over so smoothly. So you want to make sure that, again, you identify what intellectual property is being used and then specify how it's supposed to be used. What do you do with this information, right? You're a service provider, you're an expert in what you do, you're not an attorney. However, I believe that you are at least savvy enough to be able to read your contract and determine, one, is there an intellectual property section? Number two, do I know what it says? Number three, does it do those two things, which is point out or identify your intellectual property and the fact that you own it? And then that other part, which is number four, let the client know how to use it, right? You can read your contract and determine if that stuff is there. And if it's not, that's the part where you talk to an attorney. And there's a lot of edits that you can make to your contract on your own, right? But this is not one of those, especially if you do have a signature framework or method, one that you've established and have been using for a while, one that's clearly the moneymaker for your business, one that you may use or may already be using in other business endeavors, right? Like, you want to protect that. So don't play with it. Go to an attorney and have them read that section. Tell them what you're doing, how you use your intellectual property, how you plan to use it in the future. So you have proper language to communicate to your client that, number one, here's my intellectual property. And number two, this is how you're supposed to use it, only within these boundaries and under these conditions, so that you can protect your signature framework and method and keep that value and exclusivity and be able to leverage it for multiple streams of income and other advantages in the future of your business. That control and that exclusivity is where the value comes in. So again, you want to make sure you have that. That is what I have for y'all today. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I will see y'all for the next live. Talk to you later.